Hey, it's Hunt. You found Hunt on Saints. We're talking black and gold football. Do us a favor. Hit the like button, share your comments below, and hit that subscription button so you can get all of our content. Enjoy. Luke, how we doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Doing quite well. Imagining the Saints were doing a little bit better 2 weeks ago than they are today. What was the vibe check in the locker room after that one in Atlanta? That was tough to watch.
Yeah, I think a lot of the guys are kind of just fed up with their performance in some of these close games late. The line that just like stuck with me is, Dennis Allen's like, look, I think we got a good team. We were in there, playing a competitive game against another good team in the Falcons, yada yada yada. And Chris Olave afterwards was like, I'm sick of hearing we're a good team. Like, yeah, until we start winning these close games, like playoff teams do, like winning teams do, then we're not a good team. I went back and looked it up. In their last 7 games decided by 7 points or less, they are 1-6. Their performance in these types of games is not good, and they've lost 2 straight. And now their season that got off to such a promising start is kind of feeling a lot like the last couple of years.
I know that this is something that you probably look into, but does it feel like there's a common thread in those losses at 1-6 mark? I mean, is there something that they don't have?
There's unfortunately so many common threads. Let's see. Since Dennis Allen has taken over in 2022, they're 8-10 in games decided by 7 or less, right? Which, on the surface, like, it's not that bad. It's kind of in line with their regular record. But then you look at those games more closely. They've had the lead or were tied in the final 4 minutes of 6 of those, or 8 of those 10 losses. 6 of those losses included explosive plays of 30-plus yards or defensive penalties of 30-plus yards. And in some cases, both of those things. And then you look at the offense's performance. They've had 9 drives where they had an opportunity to take the lead or tie the game inside of the final 4 minutes. And those 9 drives have resulted in 10 points. And one of those, only one of those drives that resulted in a touchdown was last week, which they ended up then coughing the lead right up anyways. So it's just been it's been bad performances all around, offense, defense. Special teams is also included in this. They've had 3 missed field goals on those 9 drives. So it's just it's really, really maddeningly poor performance. And when you look at it, it's easy to see the Saints team being a winning team if they could find a way to win these games. Since 2022, in this span that I'm talking about, they have 5 wins of 17-plus points, like blowout wins. That's more than anybody in the NFL except for the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Cowboys. Like, this is a team that is capable of blowing you out. It's just not capable of winning the close games.
Man, there's a lot of different ways I could go with that. And I realize there's not a single team in early October that's healthy in the NFL. It just doesn't exist after a couple of weeks. But I also feel like it's reasonable to look at this and go, well, Kamara's got some broken ribs apparently, and Olave's banged up, and not to mention you don't have 2 of your offensive linemen, and all of a sudden you've got a defense that doesn't have Demario Davis or Tyrann Mathieu, and Marshawn Lattimore's been banged up. Like, there's so many guys out. Is there anything to that, or that's just an excuse that nobody wants to talk about?
I think it's the latter. Obviously, like, these games could be different if you've got Taysom Hill in the lineup, if you got Eric McCoy in the lineup, if you got Demario, if you've got Tyrann Mathieu on the game for late clutch situations. Obviously, but like you said, every single NFL team deals with this stuff. So you cannot fall back on this as an excuse. The Saints have had their starting quarterback in the, they haven't had the injury to the most important position. Obviously, Carr dealt with injuries last year, but everybody deals with this sort of stuff. Everybody misses important players. I mean, the Eagles on their game-winning touchdown drive, they didn't have 3 of their most important offensive players.
Yeah.
And A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Lane Johnson. So it's not something they can fall back on as an excuse, saying if we had these guys, it'd be different. You just still got to get the job done.
It's a good point. Atlanta didn't have 2 of their offensive linemen in the game on Sunday either, so that's just kind of the way it goes in the NFL. As far as those injuries go, how are we feeling about Monday? It's an extra day of rest. I didn't get the sense that anybody but McCoy was definitely out an extended period of time. Do you feel like they'll be a little healthier when they go to Kansas City?
A little bit, but I still think there's a chance that they're missing some important players. Taysom Hill, I would imagine there's a good chance he misses this game. You're talking about two chest injuries in the span of 3 games. The bruised lung obviously kept him out of the Philly game. Wouldn't surprise me if the rib issue that he's dealing with now keeps him out of the Kansas City game. Cesar Ruiz is one that I'm really not sure about. We haven't heard anything really definitive on what kind of knee injury he's dealing with, other than they have chosen not to put him on IR. But I think that's another injury that could potentially keep him out. I feel a little bit better about Demario Davis and Tyrann Mathieu. The fact that Tyrann never went back to the locker room after kind of dealing with his injury makes me feel a little bit better about that. And Demario, I mean, he was around all last week, even though he wasn't practicing. He was out there. So I feel like there's a decent chance he'll be back as well. So it's a little bit of good, a little bit of bad. As
far as Taysom goes, I spent some time on that back on Tuesday's show, being like they're statistically in terms of the production are way better when he's out there, but his statistics are not like eye popping. It's like 5 carries in this game, and obviously he had a couple touchdowns before he went out of the game on Sunday. It's not like they overwork him or anything. It's just that they're a little bit more productive when he's out there. What are they missing when he's not there, and how do they counteract that?
Well, I mean, the big thing, and this is something that we talked about in the lead up to the season, is we were expecting a lot more of him on the field just because his versatility really allows them to do a lot more, even when he's not touching the ball. In previous iterations of this offense, it was like when Taysom was on the field, he was getting the ball more often than not. And in this offense, he's just more of he's on the field more, and he's lining up in a lot of different positions to where they can't key on him. So it kind of opens up a lot of different play calls that they can do with him on the field. So I mean, even just taking away like the really good situational stuff, like the 3rd and short stuff that they really missed against Philly, the goal line stuff that he showed he could do against Atlanta, like that stuff is obvious. But when you can line him up at fullback and the team doesn't know if he's going to get the fullback dive or he's going to leak out into the flat or if he's just going to be a lead blocker on the play, I think that's what really hurts when you take him out, because they have a lot of different things they can do with him on the field that makes the defense kind of have to guess.
Luke Johnson's our guest, covers the Saints for The Advocate. Follow him on Twitter at @ByLukeJohnson for all your Saints information. All right, let's turn our attention to this game at Kansas City. I think when the schedule came out, if you were going to look at any game and say, well, they're going to win that one, it would have been the opener against Carolina at home. If you're going to look at any game and say they're not going to win that game, it would probably be this one on Monday Night Football in Kansas City. Do you feel any differently now than you did when the schedule came out after watching Kansas City the first few weeks and watching New Orleans?
Yeah, weirdly I do.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna pick the Saints to win this game. Right? Kansas City obviously is 4-0. They've got the world's best player on their team. You're an idiot if you pick against Kansas City. I've learned that last year when I kind of doubted them in that playoff run, and they go out and win another Super Bowl. But they've looked pretty vulnerable this year, even though they are 4-0. We talk about close games. Like they've had to pull out 4 close games in 4 weeks. Rashee Rice is hurt. Travis Kelce hasn't been that good this year. Patrick Mahomes, frankly, hasn't been that good this year. He's got a turnover in every game. Their scoring's way down. So I mean, they can be beat. Like it wouldn't be a complete shocker to me if the Saints went in there and beat them this week. Which like I wouldn't have believed myself saying that 2 months ago. But at the same time, I mean, like, it's really hard to bet against them, right? And they have found ways to win. Like the exact stuff we were just talking about with the Saints not finding ways to win. Like the Chiefs have been on the opposite side of that coin. And I think really the strength of their team this year has been their defense. Like Steve Spagnuolo is a great defensive play caller. He's gotten those guys he's absolutely pushing all the right buttons for those guys. They've got a lot of really good players on that side of the ball. And you have to figure that at some point, like Mahomes in this offense is going to figure it out. So, like vulnerable, yes. Like, am I picking the Saints? No.
When I look at this Chiefs defense, and make no mistake, like they were great on defense last year. That was something that a lot of people don't want to talk about because Mahomes and Kelsey are more fun to talk about. But defense is great, and Chris Jones right there in the middle of it had 2 sacks last week at Los Angeles. That's a soft spot for the Saints with McCoy and potentially Ruiz out. Is that the biggest issue you see with this Kansas City defense and the Saints offense?
Yeah, 100%. I mean that and just like Spagnuolo's pressure packages. Like if you're going to talk about any quarterback, like all NFL quarterbacks are not as good against pressure as they are in a clean pocket. But like the splits are especially dramatic for Derek Carr, and if the Chiefs do one thing really, really well, it's generate pressure. And if they have one guy who can wreck a defense or wreck an offense, it's Chris Jones. Going up against like the weakest spot on this Saints team, one that wasn't especially strong going into the season, and then has gotten considerably weaker with injuries to Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz. So I mean that just makes you think back to like the Eagles game and Jalen Carter just completely wrecking that game for the Saints offense.
Yep.
I mean I think Chris Jones has the potential to do the exact same thing if the Saints aren't smart about things. So they're going to have to get kind of creative with their offensive scheme because they can't just run what they run against this team. I don't think.
It's the NFL, and it's so week to week, and we get ahead of ourselves. But I guess that's kind of the point on this medium here in the radio. But like, if they lose at Kansas City for their 3rd loss in a row, you turn around and you got Tampa coming to you. Like, what if they lose these next 2? I mean, you lose all of a sudden 5 in a row. What does that mean?
I think it means they're just exactly what we thought they were,
yeah.
Right? I mean, I think if you go back and look at, a lot of people at the beginning of the season are like, they need to go at least 2-4 in those first 6 games. Now, people's expectations changed a little bit after they got off to such a hot start. But like, I still think if they lose the next 2 games, right, it's going to be bad. Everybody's going to hate it. But their schedule still lines up very, very favorably toward the end. They still got games against the Giants. They got another one against the Panthers. They get the Falcons at home. They still have some really
Cleveland
winnable. Cleveland, Las Vegas, like the back end of their schedule is very, very friendly. So like it'll be bad. Yes, people will be down on the team, but it's not something that is insurmountable. I don't think.
Let's talk about the last thing here that everybody wants to talk about. Davante Adams. Is that a realistic thing for this team?
I mean, I think it is, but like the problem is that you've got a lot of competition for him, and in order to make it work on the Saints end, like you're going to need some help from the Raiders. So that means you're going to have to give them a pretty compelling package. Like you're going to have to blow the other teams out of the water because like they're going to need the Raiders to take on some of the salary. So I think that's like a roadblock for this. I wouldn't put it at like great chances of being successful, but if the Saints are really, really want Davante Adams, like they can put together the package to get him. It's just a matter of whether they think that's a wise investment in a receiver who, while he's been very, very good the last couple of years, he is going to turn 32 in December. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's obviously we're going to be paying a lot of close attention to it. But I think some other teams might have a little bit better resources to make that trade happen.
The biggest question, will the Brewers win the baseball game today?
Well, I was texting our friends last night about how I was never more confident in anything in human history than the Brewers not making a comeback last night.
Uh-huh.
So of course I'm picking them to win tonight. I just think they're pitching. It's been like the bedrock of their success for the last decade, and it kind of sucks right now. But your boy Jose
Quintana is he's not good, but he has been good against the Brewers. That's a good point. I forgot about
he has dominated them in the past. Yeah. So like I'm not feeling great, but I'm going to pick him to win because like I can't just tell everybody how much I hate my team right now.
All right. Safe travels up to KC, and good luck to the Brew Crew tonight. Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you next week.
Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.